Annual offtake of credit to SDG is about 25,000 crores. 60% is going to these three states, and repayment is 95%. So they are doing something that other SDGs are not doing, and therefore you need to every SDG is not the same. You have to look at how the SDG is formed and how it is nurtured and what values it subscribes to. I'll close here, but I think we are over time, and I thank all the panelists who have given incredible information and perhaps a lot to discuss over lunch. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the chair and the panelists for laying the issues regarding definitions of poverty, regarding interventions on poverty on the table. Now we move over to the second session, which is about enhancing social protection for all. I would request Additional Secretary, Ministry of Labour and Employment, Shri Hiralal Samaria sir, to chair the session, and would request the esteemed panelists, Professor Amitabh Kundu, Shri Shishir Sinha sir, Ms. Mittal Shah, Shri Marcus Ruck, and Ms. Misaki Aksada Ueda from UNICEF to kindly take the places on the dais so that we could start with the second session. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I welcome all my fellow partners for this panel discussion and others. We'll go like that. Each person will be speaking between 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll go for question and answer session, and then we'll wrap up the whole thing. So I'll request Mr. Amitabh Kundu, because he wants to make a presentation initially for 5 to 10 minutes, and then others can start. I'll request Mr. Amitabh Kundu.
Thank you. Mr. Chairperson, experts, senior officials, the two sides of the dais, colleagues and friends. As we enter the third session, we are already at an interesting juncture. While the Niti Aayog thinks that we should not bother too much about the definitions of poverty and getting into better implementation, the different ministries want the Niti Aayog to give greater clarity on poverty, cutoff point, and also the researchers are also saying that perhaps the definition needs to be revisited, and even AC, socioeconomic caste census data, which have been talked about. Besides not having a cutoff point of poverty line, there are issues relating to overstatement of deprivation in that data set, basically because the respondents knew that the data will be used for various programs. But let me quickly tell you that before about 27 years, the United Nations system decided that there should be MDGs. And MDG 1 had 3 targets, which is halving poverty, halving hunger, and having decent employment. Now, in SDG again, after 25 years, we again put in SDG 1, again with the 3 similar kind of targets coming up. It gives an impression that we have failed miserably in the first MDG. In fact, official statistics certainly shows that that's not the case. Just look at this. It shows that the red line shows actual achievement in terms of poverty reduction in economic poverty. But the blue one shows what was expected, halving, and at the global level. And in India, also, Yuri mentioned in the inaugural session, and also Rajiv Kumar mentioned, that we have certainly achieved a much faster rate of poverty reduction, economic poverty, as compared to what was targeted. This is true for three other targets: drinking water, and also slum improvement, which is linked with poverty. And third is gender deprivation in the primary school level. In 6 other targets, the deficits were 6 to 12%. In others, the situation was alarming. You find that serious deficits were there with other targets. The actual performance was shown by the red line, which was much less than what was expected to be in terms of reduction. But there are issues. Even at the macro level, if we say in India or in Asia, poverty reduction, economic poverty has been very sharp. Multidimensional poverty, yes, that was mentioned several times. You do find that the poorer the region, poorer the country, higher is the gap between economic poverty and multidimensional poverty. Look at Bihar, look at Uttar Pradesh, Orissa. We have figures for all that, and you do find that the gaps between economic poverty and multidimensional poverty is very, very high. Second problem with regard to achieving the target at the national level is that in many regions, many states, and that's the point which was brought out by Niti Aayog, that there are pockets of poverty. And the pockets, the corners of poverty are not only geographical corners. It is true that many of the districts which have been identified as aspirational districts, where you find poverty reduction has been minimal. So that is another thing. Achieving the target at the national level is not enough. Rural-urban inequality reduction is very important. UN Habitat mentioned that rural areas need to be given separate targets, for achieving poverty, and achieving poverty reduction, and that's where we have failed. Just look at this. The red one shows the rural deprivation, and the blue one shows the urban deprivation. You do find in drinking water, sanitation, poverty level, rural-urban gaps have really gone up in many of the countries and many of the states of India. So the second problem is not reaching the poverty reduction targets at the rural-urban level and across different states. And third point, I would like to mention, and this was the point that Rajesh Bhai talked about, the corners are existing not only in the geographical sense, also in the social sense. Scheduled caste, scheduled tribe population, Muslim population. And there you find that the deprivation level is pretty high. In the rural areas, the highest poverty is reported by the scheduled tribe population, then scheduled caste population, and then Muslims population. And that's much higher than the average level. In the urban context, you find Muslim poverty is the highest compared to scheduled caste and scheduled tribe population, because in the urban areas, movement of scheduled caste, scheduled tribe population partly takes place with reservation, which is not the case for the Muslims. I looked at the changes over time, and you do find that the improvement in consumption expenditure and reduction in poverty has been less in case of the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and Muslim population, both in the rural areas, both in the metropolitan cities, and also in the smaller urban centers. I looked at somewhat greater detail in terms of education and health. You do find in the educational context, we provide the graphs for scheduled caste, scheduled tribe population, because SDG 1 talks about inclusive development and reduction of poverty for all. We do find that at the age of 14 years, there is a significant dropout rate. It's a stream, because children are getting out of school. This is the percentage of children attending the school. But for different socio-economic groups, Rajiv Kumar talked about different corners. I'm talking about geographical, not geographical corners, but sociological corners. You do find the dropout rate is very high for the woman, for the scheduled tribe population, scheduled caste population, and the dropout rate is higher in case of the urban areas, because there is some employment opportunities for the children, so they drop out of the school. The dropout rate is very high in case of the Muslim population also. So we looked at the data at 2 points of time, and we do find that there has not been much improvement as far as the school attendance is concerned with regard to the marginalized sections of the population. One interesting point, Muslim literacy rate, Muslim achievement in secondary and higher education is slightly higher than scheduled caste, scheduled tribe population in 1951, 1961. But we find over time, the advantage that Muslim literacy rate had over the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe literacy is now declining. In fact, because of the attendance rate for the Muslim children, boys and girls both, is much less as compared to the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe population. Also, this is one area of concern I just wanted to mention, but still we define that the Muslim literacy rate is slightly higher than the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe literacy rate, but the gap has gone down. I just wanted to talk about health. As far as access to health facilities are concerned, access to government facilities, you do find scheduled caste, scheduled tribe population have lesser access than the average, which I think all of us are concerned about it. And also the same thing is the case for the Muslim population. Access to the health, government hospitals for delivery and also for hospitalization and outdoor services happens to be less. But one interesting point which comes out in the Sachar Commission report also, that although the access to health facilities is less, but the outcome in terms of infant mortality rate, in terms of maternal mortality rate, in terms of women's anemia for the Muslim household is slightly better than even the upper caste Hindu population. That's partly because of the gender discrimination which appears in terms of health facilities is less within the Muslim households. I just don't want to get into the statistics because they are available. Since Dr. Rajiv Kumar provoked me, say that we should discuss about the health situation, I'll just take two more minutes to talk about the two different schemes, because basically we should be looking at the social safety schemes. One is Atal Pension Yojana, and second is this RSBY, Rural Swasthya Bima Yojana. As I mentioned, that the situation is improving over time, but geographical inequality, multidimensional poverty. In fact, I was responsible for the UN SCOA based in Beirut to prepare the report for multidimensional poverty for Arab countries. And Arab countries strongly denied that we don't have any poverty. Indeed, economic poverty is not there, but multidimensional poverty is very, very high. And that's the case you find in case of many of the regions. In India also, multidimensional poverty is very high, geographical exclusion, and also the social exclusion. Talking about Atal Pension Yojana, I just skip all this. It's a very important and a very significant step taken by the present government in trying to cover the unorganized sector of the population. Anybody, if is not covered, if she or she is not covered under any pension scheme, can join this within the age group of 18 to 40. At least 20 years of payment of the premium has to be made. If you join at 40, you have to pay higher rate in order to get the pension amount. Pension amount varies between 1,000, it can be 2,000, it can be 5,000 also. So you join at the age of 18, you pay the lowest premium, 42 rupees per month, up to the age of 60 years. When you're 60, you are entitled to 1,000 rupees monthly pension per month. Now, the amount that you're depositing now gets accumulated month after month, and when you're 60 years of age, your amount is 1.7 lakhs. And that 1.7 lakh, the interest on that is coming out as 1,000 rupees. I'm just taking one category just to bring out one of the major issues of concern in this. Now the point is, if you're depositing 42 rupees per month, it becomes 1.7 lakhs because the government is giving an interest rate of 8.7%. And after that, government gives an interest payment of 7.1% only after you have attained the age of 60. Now, I would like to first of all argue that if a person like me, after retirement, can put 15 lakhs of rupees and get 8.3% rate of interest from any bank, how come the government is giving only 7.8% during the period of accumulation and 7.1% after retirement? That is one thing. Secondly, there is no indexing. You get 1,000 rupees after 40 years, value of 1,000 rupees can become 200 rupees only. There has to be some indexation, but that has to be done only, not only for the pension amount, but also for the premium that you are paying. Thirdly, when you die, both the couple, husband and wife, the amount of 1.7 lakh is given to the nominee. There has to be a provision that those who don't want to leave the money for the nominee, they get that money, take the life expectancy. Instead of 1,000, you can pay 1,600 rupees easily without any change in the program, only the nominee amount goes to the person during their lifetime. Finally, just one more minute I want to take up for the health program. This is a major announcement made in the budget this year that 10 crore household which are below poverty line, their earlier it is RSBY, Rashtriya Swasth Bima Yojana, 30,000 was the upper limit. Now the upper limit has been increased to 5 lakhs of rupees. Now, how does this pension system work? Pension system works that the insurance companies can register you for rupees by charging rupees 30. Actually, it costs rupees 60. Earlier, it was in the Ministry of Labour that the program started. That amount is paid back to the insurance companies. Insurance company gets certain money from the government per household, per smart card issued. How much do they get? I do not know whether there's been any revision. 750 rupees per card. Now the government is talking about increasing the amount to 1,000, 10,000 crore. Budget provided only 2,000 crore. But subsequently from Niti Aayog, I heard it will be 10,000 crore. I was just talking to Vice Chairman. He said that the amount would be increased. I'm sure the amount need to be increased because I did